Teachers of Reddit, what is the craziest reason you have had to send a student to the office? Story 1. A new male student in year 4 gets mistaken by his classmates for being a female. He had long, shiny hair. I'm guessing this wasn't the first time this had happened, as he immediately jumped to the top of his desk, pulled out his private parts, and waved them around, yelling, "What the F is this? I'm a boy, I'm a boy." Story 2. I'm a middle school teacher. I had a student sneak a gas cooker and his mom's pork chops into school in a large backpack. He cooked pork chops for his friends at lunchtime. He was sent to the office for unsafe behavior. His mom was pissed he took her pork chops she was preparing for dinner. Story 3. Two stories, actually. The first one is just super sad. I was covering for a 5th grade class, and a girl walks in wearing a Hustler tube top, a pair of Daisy Dukes that were cutting off circulation, even though she was a super tiny 10-year-old, and a whale tail sticking out the back. She very clearly had not dressed herself, and she was visibly uncomfortable, both literally and figuratively. Poor thing was ungrateful to be taken to the office, though I'm sure the call home was unpleasant. The second story is just weird. Each morning, I let my kids talk about whatever they want for 5 minutes, kinda like show and tell for teenagers. One morning, a kid opens the comment portion by just saying, "Kobe." That's it. No elaboration. Nothing. A kid in the back says, "Man, Kobe sucks." First kid gets super offended. "What? Yo, mama sucks." Before I could even register the craziness that was happening, the second kid is out of his chair, over the tables, and wailing away on the first kid's face. I had to write up a report of what happened, and the office staff kept saying I needed to finish the report. This can't be everything that happened. Oh, but it was. Utterly bizarre. Story 4. We were doing sketch comedy in 6th grade a few years back, and seeing as it was a nice day, we went outside to practice. From across the field, I see one of my students very clearly and aggressively trying to put his junk on a prone classmate. When I asked him, he said it was for his sketch and he was playing a character named the Iron Teabag. The best was the follow-up text from my boss saying, I had to Google what teabagging was before I met the kid. Story 5. Got into a fistfight with her mother outside the classroom door. Story 6. My mom's been a teacher for many years. Besides the usual masturbators and the general nuisance kids, there was a sad one recently. Apparently one of her middle school students had been coming in day after day just absolutely filthy, wearing the same dirty clothes. She notifies the office and they talk to her and the parents. Apparently, the family had been living in an RV with no running water. I'm not sure if this is due to homelessness or what. We're in a rural area, and it's not uncommon to see people living this way. The school offers to let the girl shower at school, and they even have a special shop of sorts, free to the students of course, for clothing and things like hygiene items. The only issue is the school needs the parents' permission to let her shower there at the school, and the parents won't grant it. I'm not sure why. And yes, CPS has been notified several times, but they must be deeming the family's dwelling habitable in some way, though I'm not sure how the parents are getting away with such horrid, obvious neglect. My mom says the kid is just so sweet, but she smells bad, and looks even worse, and she's afraid the bullying will start soon. The area I live in is absurdly poor and very rural, so sadly, such instances are not unusual. Story 7. Kid was selling cocaine. 13 years old. Cops were involved. Had to go to court. Was a massive headache all around. Story 8. A student repeatedly getting on tables and singing Gucci Gang in the middle of class every day for weeks. I have since left the profession. Story 9. Not a teacher, but my dad was a bus driver, and one day, this kid gets on the bus, sprinting and nearly knocks himself out on the chair. When my dad goes over to see what's happening, he realizes the kid has no pants on. The mother, who drove off in her car extremely quickly, had literally sent this poor kid to school with no pants on. My dad got a student he knew really well to sit next to this kid and comfort him, and also make sure everyone else wasn't a-holes. My dad, when he finally got to the school, walked this kid into the office and asked for a spare pair of pants. Poor kid. That mother was a real a-hole. Story 10. Kid in boarding tried to cook a whole raw chicken with like 5 minutes in the microwave. A whole chicken. Story 11. Kid shows up to class 10 to 15 minutes late to a 40-minute period. 7th grade. He says, "Sorry, Miss G, I was in a bad mood and I didn't want to bring it to class." So I say, "Hey, Sean, I will still have to count you tardy. You're extremely late and I need to know where you were for safety reasons. In the future, there's a counselor request form on Google Classroom that you can fill out." He says, "Okay, thanks." Things went normally for about 10 minutes until another student shot a rubber band. It didn't hit anyone, but Sean decided to take justice into his own hands. In the middle of me giving instruction, he gets up, walks slowly across the room, I assumed for a tissue, and then smacks the other student across the face. Story 12. Student was wearing sweatpants that had a hole in it, and his pee-pee would flap out and was visibly noticeable to myself and other students. I've had students attack me and say horrible things, but this was the most memorable one. Kid ended up needing clothes, a shower, and a place to do laundry, which the school provided. I remember I tried to get a male staff to talk to him, but at 17, he did not want to hear it, so we had to resort to the office. Story 13. My mom's a teacher. A girl in her class was sitting weird and squirming and looked really ill. So my mom pulled her into the corridor and asked if she was okay. She looked like she was going to throw up. The girl started bawling and told my mom that her older brother made her wear something to school. Her trapdoor had a plug. This girl was 10. Her brother was 18. Long story short, the brother wound up arrested, and I don't know what happened after that. Obviously, the girl had to be sent to the office and her parents contacted. Story 14. A kid dropped a folder full of Xeroxed copies of his hairy ass. Turns out, he had been taping them to people's lockers all over the school. Story 15. One kid kept stabbing another kid in the neck with a needle. The kid getting stabbed didn't feel it, but I saw it. The stabber was sent to the office, and the other kid was none the wiser. Story 17. Not a crazy story, but a sad one. I was student teaching for 2nd grade. This girl was known to come to school smelling a bit off. One day she came in constantly scratching her head, non-stop, for a long time. I pulled her over and asked what's wrong. She told me her head wouldn't stop hurting. She's on the verge of tears, and she was scratching hard. I told her to let me look. She had a massive bald spot on the middle of her head, and it was also bright red from the scratching, and there was a rash. I pulled over my mentor teacher. We called her mother while writing a CPS report. The teacher was telling the mom that her daughter was scratching her head and wondered if something had happened. The mom took it as a personal attack and yelled that we said she was a bad mom. My teacher said she didn't say that, and she should come get her daughter and have her checked out. The mom's response? "I can't right now. I'm with my boyfriend and he's more important." And then she hung up. So we called CPS and I took her to the office. The nurse checked her out. She had a major case of lice and she also notified CPS. She was out for a week. She came back and I asked how she was doing. She said she's okay, but her mom didn't want her talking about it. This was about 4 years ago. I have no idea where she is now or how she's doing, but I think about her all the time. Story 18. When my sister was a substitute teacher, a kid ate the dead class fish. It was Monday, so it might have been dead all weekend. Story 19. Former teacher here. In 1988, I sent a 7th grade male student to the office on a Monday morning because he was bleeding profusely from a botched nipple piercing he had performed on himself the night before. He pulled up his shirt and it looked like 2/3 of his nipple was missing, and the blood had soaked through the front of his shirt. Story 20. I'm not a teacher, but I'm a high school psych. I don't send kids to the office, but some of my teammates sure have. Some highlights. Quite a few masturbators have been sent to get themselves cleaned up. Both boys and girls. Not for discipline, as that sort of behavior isn't typically something a student will do to be mischievous, but more of a lack of comprehension of how inappropriate it is. I had a kid hop onto the counter, then onto the big whiteboard case, and straight into the drop ceiling. He climbed around up there, yelling and screaming, knocking down ceiling tiles before we finally coaxed him down. One girl took a class chair and shattered a window in a classroom's back office. On another day, this same girl gave the assistant principal and me a watercolor paint shower. I was lucky. I was standing just behind the AP and only got a few splatters on my jacket, while she ended up getting the full blast. I lied. I guess I have sent a few kids to the office. Once. And all at once. It was last year, and I pulled into the parking lot of the junior high school I work at. I get a text and pull up my iPad to reply when I realize something is happening in my peripheral vision. I look up to see 5 students surrounding one other student who is on the ground getting the crap beat out of him. I'm an ex-hockey player. I liked scrapping when I was in middle and high school. I have a very high standard for what I even consider a proper fight. This was a one-sided gang beatdown. I go flying out of my rig and charge up to them. Oi! I shout in a kid's face, startling him. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt with a mask, so I could only see his eyes, which were wide and shock. Glad I had that effect. As I was woefully outnumbered, I just kept shouting like a drill instructor. Stand up, get in line, move. Having asserted moral authority, I quite literally marched this line of kids to the office. The victim of that assault was bruised, but otherwise okay. I'm kinda glad it was me who came across it and not the majority of my peers. I'm a relatively tall guy in good shape. I can be intimidating if I need to be, and in that situation, I needed to be.